Today I want to talk about books. Now this might not be your typical video about books. This is actually about how to get rid of your books. Maybe not all of them, but a vast majority of them. Because you see, I'm on a mission to try and see what it would be like to live with 100 items or less. Now if you looked at my previous video, 100 items or less, you'll see that I went from 445 items of clothing, from shoes, suitcases, t-shirts, coats, and everything in between, and I managed to get down to about 130, more or less. So it wasn't exactly 100 things or less, but I managed to get rid of over 70% of all my clothing items, which I thought was pretty good. Now the next step after this was going to be books. I love books. I love how they feel in my hands. I love looking at books. I love putting them on shelves, and I love buying books. Now the problem is, I buy books and I don't read them. I don't make the time for them. I've got a ton of excuses why I don't read books. But the bottom line is, I'm just not reading them. So it's a bit like if you're wasting money. Now, in 2013, it came to a point where I literally had to stop buying books as I made my accounts at the end of the year and I published a blog post on my website at markleruste.com. I was spending over £440 a year on books and I wasn't even reading them, which was totally insane. So I put a stop to that. And what I did today is I went around the entire house. I had to go back and forth again to my parents' house to collect all the books I'd left over there and all the books I'd lent to people around. And I got them all together in one room. Now, this is, as far as I'm concerned, all the books I own. There may be a few there and then, but this is pretty much everything I own. And the grand total, roll the drums, is 302 books. Now, the interesting thing is I actually split them into different categories. Now, you can do this however you want, but the way that I did it is I split them through cookbooks, health and fitness, business books, self-help, biographies, novels, and other books, grammar, spelling books, music, and magazines. That's kind of how I split them up. And then the way that I did it is that you can actually see visually which sections represents the most. The most insane one I found is self-help books, which actually 114 self-help books, which represents more or less 38% of all my books that I own. 38% of all the books I own are self-help books. Now you'd expect that I'd be President of the United States. Forget about the fact that I was never born there. These books should have actually got me to get there. What I'm realizing is that there's actually a flip side to owning so many books that you haven't read, because you feel like there's all this knowledge out there that you need to know before you actually take some kind of action. And this is what these videos are all about, to help you take action, even when we feel like we're not ready and that we might not have all the knowledge in the world that we need right now. And so what I'm going to be doing now is I'm actually going to go through all these books. I'm going to take them one by one, and I'm going to see how they make me feel. Like, do I get excited holding the book, or am I just kind of meh? And very quickly, I'm going to put them all into different piles. A pile of giving to charity, a pile that I'm selling, and a pile that I'm keeping. I have no idea what the final number will be by the end of this process. I'd love to be able to get rid of at least 50% of my books. That would really be a huge thing for me, because I'm so attached to my books, and I love how they sit on my shelves. And what I'm going to do afterwards, I'm going to actually explain to you how I did this and what are the different steps and processes. So stick around and wish me luck. There you have it. This is what I managed to boil down to. 302 books is what I owned previously. Now I have 67 books. That's right. I got rid of 78% of all the books and magazines that I owned. Now it may seem like it's quite a lot, but to be honest, I wasn't so attached about the number of books I was going to end up with, but I was rather more curious about the process between deciding what I kept, what I gave, and what I was going to sell. The interesting thing is I went from 114 self-help books to just 32 self-help books. Now, it's still a big majority of what I have. It's almost 50% of all the books I've got left. But to be fair, it's the books I read. So I decided to keep books that I was actually going to read or actually gave me some joy by holding them. I had 15 biographies previously and I've got now none. The truth is, I've had these biographies on my bookshelves for so many years and I've just never read them. They're taking space, and probably also every time I see them, I'm probably thinking, I should be reading this and I haven't. So I'm not quite sure how that is influencing me in a good way. Cookbooks. I had 30 cookbooks. I've now got 8 cookbooks, and I've really kept the ones which I feel I'm going to be using almost on a daily basis. At least that's my wish. I've got rid of a lot of books today, and I've got to say it feels kind of great between what I'm going to sell and what I'm going to give and what I'm keeping. One thing I've noticed, if you've seen my previous video, then you'll know that I have this belief, and I've read it from other people, I've heard it from other people, that the more stuff we have, the less space we have to focus on the things that matter. So I'm on a mission to try and declutter as much as I can and hopefully help you in the process declutter a bit of your space too. The way you want to do this, it's super, super easy. You want to go around the entire house or your flat, wherever you live, and collect every single book, magazine, cookbook, novel, everything that you own. Really bring it back and put it all in one room. Lay it all out. Don't do room by room. That's the #1 mistake that you'll probably end up doing if you don't follow this advice. You want to get everything in one room. And then once you spread it all out, you can either divide them in, like the way I did it, between novels, self-help books, business books, cookbooks, etc., or you just lay them all out. To be honest, it's pretty much the same. Get a global count of how many books you have and just see how many books you own. The shocking, if you're like me, fact is when you realize just how little of these books you've actually read. Next step is you're going to go through them as quickly as you can, picking them up one by one, and deciding if you're keeping it, you're giving it away, or you're selling it. Don't overthink this. You'll feel it very quickly, to be honest. I know it sounds surprising, it sounds a little bit woohoo, which is what I thought, but the process actually really works. And I got this tip from Marie Kondo in her book. So go through this process, and that's what I did. And I ended up with 67 books left, which is a big chunk of books that I'm getting rid of. You can subscribe to the show by clicking the little icon on the bottom right of this video. If you know someone who could use a little bit of help of decluttering, make sure to share this video with them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.